Back when I was managing radio stations, I had an AM station in the cluster. It was a news talk radio station, 50K, big signal and all that sort of stuff. And a thought crossed my mind that, gee, why wouldn't somebody do this? And possibly it could actually save AM radio for the long haul. And now, as you know, AM radio has been at the forefront for radio because auto manufacturers wanted to pull it out. And still, actually, many of the manufacturers haven't changed their minds. Ford did, but they want to pull it out of a car, car and automobiles. And you go like, ooh, that would be a disaster. That would be brutal. So let's go back to the idea, and let me tell you about it. It's a little strange, but it could be the answer. Hey Buckaroos, welcome back to Musicom Academy. So this is like an idea that I had like 20 years ago when I was managing and I had a news talk station, under my wing, and we were selling side channels, as so many AM stations do and FM stations do. You sell the side channel. But it crossed my mind at that time, there's so many AM radio stations across North America, and when you put their signals together, okay, it blankets their signals. If they were one, this is the big point, if you could get one thing on all of the signals, or just the 50Ks alone, the clear channel ones, you would blanket the US, you would blanket Canada, probably not up, up in the extremes in the Yukon and, up toward the Arctic. But essentially what you have, and this is what I'm going for here, you have a satellite footprint on North America, US and Canada, and you could pretty much do anything you wanted with those signals as far as a send out. Okay, you're not probably going to have a two-way conversation, although maybe there's a way of doing that, and I'll just bounce an idea off of you. Now, I'm not an engineer, so I'm just throwing this out to radio engineers who happen to be watching this, or people who are running one of the iHearts or Cumulus or or Bell or whatever. Bell would be great in Canada. I mean, they're full of engineers, telephone engineers. They know this stuff backward and forward of something that might be a possibility. So I thought, okay, well, before I throw this crazy idea out, stupid maybe, who cares if it's stupid or not? It's always good to have ideas and throw them up against the wall and see what happens. So this is it genuinely. I went looking at it and I was sort of curious. So it's like, here's a question. If you had a satellite, okay, what does that cost? Well, satellite costs about $300 million to launch, okay, to get it up there. And they last roughly 10 years. Some go a little longer, some go a little less, but the average is around 10 years. And then you have to replace them. Like all the GPS satellites, I think there's 24 of them around the world, and every 10 years, one goes dead and you got to put another one up. And they just leave them up there, a lot of space junk. So anyway, $30 million to put one up and hold it for 10 years. So that's $30 million a year. Now, to maintain them on the ground and keep them going and everything, it's about another $1.5 million to $2 million. So now you're at $32 million a year. My original thought was, well, gee, if you just bought a bunch of AM radio stations, you don't have to do the $300 million every 10 years. When you do the math, if you do, okay, 10 years, the first 10, okay, there's 300. And then you have the second 10, when you start into that in year number 11, you're now at $600 million. And then when you cross the 20-year line, you're now at $900 million. You're almost $1 billion if you look for the long haul. What would it cost to buy all the AM radio stations that are out there, or just the clear channels? Okay, so that was the original thought, and I have no idea what that would be. It might be close. Maybe you could buy them all for $1 billion. But what you could certainly do, for $300 million, you could lease the side channels, at least one side channel on probably every clear channel, 50K, in North America, no problem. I don't think that would be a big deal. And you could probably go off into the media markets. In other words, you could build it so that your signal patterns cover each other. They're broadcasting the exact same thing, and you cover, all the square inches of the US and Canada. So you're probably asking yourself right now, certainly I would be, what do you do with that? What do you do with that side signal? The side signal to me would be, you're not broadcasting any kind of, there's no talking, there's no, music playing, there's no anything. You're doing data. You're using that side channel for just data alone. Now let me hold right there and just ask you this question. Do you know what a mesh network is? Everybody, and their brother at some point has heard of AirTags, okay? The Apple AirTags, those little round things. And, you attach them to, a bag, you put it in your suitcase, you attach it to your computer, phone, whatever, and you can easily track what's going on, okay? And so if that thing moves, you get a notification on your phone, and, you can literally watch it move around the world. Like if you throw it in a suitcase and, and all of a sudden, your luggage gets lost. In Europe, you can see exactly where it is, even when you're back in the United States. Now, how they work is where I'm going with this. They work simply, they're just sending out a signal, and anybody that has an Apple device that walks by, so if somebody walks by and they got an iPhone, that thing, the iPhone picks it up. It picks up the signal and goes, oh, okay, hey, this AirTag with this number is in this spot. And then the phone sends it into a central place, probably Cupertino in California, Apple headquarters, and then that relays that message to your computer or your phone wherever you are. So that's a mesh network, and they're on everything. Amazon has that. If you have an Amazon Ring, the Amazon Ring is talking to your Alexa app. It's talking to anything that pretty much Amazon sells that's electronic. They also talk to fridges and stoves and toasters and you name it. In this day and age, everything is talking to everything. But for a ton of it, it's not a two-way conversation, it's a one-way conversation, okay? So the AirTag, it's not getting information back, it's just sending out a signal. So what do you know that sends out a signal? Okay, well, AM stations do. So the question, I don't have this answer, but I'm just throwing it out there because I'm kind of throwing out the idea that you don't have to put a satellite up to be able to throw a signal with something on it to the entirety of North America for a way cheaper amount, and something that will actually probably be safer because you're not going to launch a satellite and 2 years later it goes dead, or it blows up going up to begin with, like what just happened, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago with one of the SpaceX satellites. Okay, that's not going to happen because somebody can go out to the transmitter and fix it and get it running again. So infinitely safer, you have a satellite network, but it's on the ground, if that makes any sense. And you just need something to send the signal off. So to the engineers who are watching right now, if you could take your AM transmitter and mess with it and send some data, could you? And what would that be? And I guess the other question is it possible to make that thing two-way? I mean, one idea that sort of struck me is like, the more I thought about it, if you set up different places, just like those Apple phones or an Apple computer or AirPods or whatever, if you were in a city like New York, I'm sure probably it could be set up where they could be sent, something could be sent back, to the network, back to the closest radio station, one would assume, from maybe, hitting a phone tower or hitting just some other tower. In other words, you can only put a few up in one place and cover a city, and then all of a sudden there's a way for data to get back. So, I don't know technically if that can be done, but it seems like in this day and age, if you can think it, somebody can make it. That seems to be a given anymore. I'm sure there's way more things that can be sent on a commercial basis where you go like, wow, I would love to do that. I always wanted to do that by putting up a satellite, but I can't afford to put up a satellite. Our company just isn't that big, but I can maybe afford $30 million a year. Okay, I just can't afford the 300 out of the gate. Anyway, that's the thought. Just throw it out to you because it would seem to me that it would be a nice injection of cash into AM signals, into AM radio stations. Programming would go on as is, but it's just more money coming in if you're iHeart or Cumulus or whoever. And also I think for the long-term viability of AM radio, so we don't have these congressional hearings and Senate things and manufacturers going, maybe we should pull it out. All of a sudden it will be a new technology and those discussions hopefully would just drop away. And therefore AM radio for the longer term has a better shot of existence. Dumb idea, decent idea, all of the above, whatever. Until the next time, I was gonna say the next lesson, but this wasn't a lesson, it was just me just, throwing crap out. Hope you liked it. Until the next one. See ya!